It's your math facilitator, Naomi Andreg, and I wanted to go over the process of finding slope, and specifically finding slope when we have fractional values for our x and our y coordinates. So here, this is an example. We're still going to use the slope formula like we always do, but we have x values and y values that are nice ugly fractions instead of nice beautiful integers. So we have x1, y1 is 1/10 negative 3, and then x2, y2 is negative 1/5, negative 1/5. And this means that instead of substituting in whole numbers, I'm going to have to substitute in fractions, and then I'm going to have fractions on top of fractions, and it's going to look a little messy for a minute. Okay, so I go down to the slope formula, and I substitute in. I know first comes y2, and y2 is, look, negative 1/5, because it's the second coordinate of the second point. So I put negative 1/5 there. Then I go to y1, that's the second coordinate of the first point. So it's negative 3. So I'm going to be subtracting a negative 3. We know that when we subtract a negative, that's going to turn into addition in a minute. Then x2, that's the first coordinate of the second point, so it's negative 1/5. And then x1, that's the first coordinate of the first point, so that's 1/10. And here I'm subtracting a positive number, so that really is going to be subtraction. Okay, so I have this ugly thing, and it has fractions on top of fractions, fractions divided by fractions, subtracting fractions and all this stuff. So one approach would be to find a common denominator on the bottom and subtract those and get a fraction on the bottom, and find a common denominator on the top and subtract or add those and get a fraction on the top and then divide fractions. But that's not the approach I'm going to take, because I think that's a little more messy and time consuming than it needs to be. So my preferred approach when I have something like this is to multiply by 1 that's written in a very special way. So we know we can always multiply by 1, and it's not going to change the value. It just might change how it looks. So here I want to multiply by 1 in a way that I don't have these little fractions here anymore. So if we look at these denominators and think about, well, what could I multiply by? So here's, well, what could I multiply by to get rid of all these fractions? Well, 10, if I multiply by 10, that gets rid of the 10th, but it also gets rid of the 5th and the 5, because 10 is my least common denominator here. It's a multiple of both 5 and 10. So I'm multiplying by something that's a multiple of all my little denominators of fractions. But I'm not really multiplying by 10, I'm multiplying by 10 over 10, which is just 1, so it's just changing how it looks. So I would multiply the top and the bottom of this by 10. So here's how I would do that. So I've got this ugly expression. I multiply by it by 10 over 10, and that means distributive property tells me I'm going to have to multiply each one of these 4 parts by 10. So if I multiply the negative 1/5 by 10, I end up with negative 10/5. Just think about that. Well, multiply x by 10, I get 10x. Multiply 1/5 by 10, I get 10/5. Multiply 1/3 by 10, I get 10/3. If you say that, I think it's a little easier, but really you're just multiplying the top part of the fraction by 10. So we have 10/5, and that's just going to be 2, because 10 divided by 5 is 2. Okay? Here, this is minus a negative. Just go ahead and change it to a positive and multiply it by 10 also, so that will be a 30. 3 times 10. Multiply this negative 1/5 by 10 the same way. It's negative 10/5. Multiply this 1/10 by 10, and I have 10 tenths. So then I just go ahead and divide those, and I end up with 10 divided by 5 is negative 2, 10 divided by 5 is negative 2, 10 divided by 10 is negative 1, and then I can just combine what's on top and bottom and maybe reduce if I need to. So if I combine those, negative 2 plus 30 is 28, and negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. So I'm going to have 28 divided by negative 3, but I go ahead and put the negative out front. So I have negative 28 over 3, and that would be my answer. So I hope this helps. This multiplying by 1 in a special way is something that is a recurring theme in mathematics. It happens over and over, so it's something to keep in your toolbox. Okay, I hope this helps. Bye.